All right, here we go with phase two of this little trilogy grouping of videos. And if I didn't mention it before, for the few who may come along and not know who this is David Burns at Copper Gardens in Rough and Ready, California. And yeah, there's really a place in California with that name. Long story behind it, and I won't bother you with that. Okay, first goes on. Well, now I'm assuming that we've placed the core, what will we call this? The primary gas supply element piece in the bottom of the cauldron. And this is where I think we have a little variation. The bulkhead fitting that you'll use in the final setting may or may not be precisely what this, about an inch, 3/4 to an inch above the bottom of the cauldron. This is why I built in some flexibility here. If it stands a little taller, then we simply have to drop everything down a little bit to suit. And to suit simply means whatever works best. I rotated this a little bit. Let me get the, and location of everything, of course, matters a little bit, because in the two, you'll see, I drilled one hole here, and there was another opening in my free casting that was close, and I had to do a little work to open that up. So we're going to have two of the gas lines go down through there. Gas is not coming up through the larger tube. I killed it down in here. Oh, on top, right on top. I'm sorry. And came out the side with a 1/2 inch supply line, into which I got to get this in the right order here. For God's sakes, let me look at my own notes, which are in by my computer so I could write it up. So let me make sure I get this right. Okay, the next item is the pilot grouping, which is this little spider-looking device. I wanted 4 pilots coming up, out, and around the bowl. Might have gotten away with fewer, but it just seems like we need more opportunities to light this kind of scattered flame that is going to boil up out of the water. And this works. This works quite well. Actually, once in a while, a pilot will catch a burst of poof from air rather than gas, and it'll blow out. But soon, another one will light the gas flame, and the pilot will relight. So for that reason, as well, I wanted to use 4 pilots. Okay. Next goes on what I'm calling the bowl holder. Wrong. That comes on after the primary gas supply, which is this gizmo. And I've killed it here in the middle. Before I had it just coming up and out. And I had 0 adjustability on this component. Now, with this coil of 1/4 inch, we have some movement possible. It goes up, and then the gas is finally emitted here. And I kind of doinked around and fiddled with this thing to move. And we'll find out when I fire this up later tonight. I had a little favoritism of gas, and therefore flame, to one side of the bowl. And I did a little bit of fiddling here to see if we can balance that a little more evenly. On it, below the split, is a tab that bolts this piece to the pilot piece. Everything is just a little bit flopsy-mopsy when it's all together, which I kind of want. I don't want it to be rock solid. I want some flexibility. But I do want it to be tied together, and I want there to be a way to understand what goes where. Okay, now we have a coupling unit down here, which just takes an easy threaded screw-on job like that. Then bring that hole in alignment up here. Let's see, can I? You can't see a darn thing, can you? Okay, I'm sorry. This hole up here, let's see if my monitor gives me a clue. Yeah, kinda. GoPros are wonderful except for this kind of thing. I just don't have a better solution. A 1/4 inch brass, everything's brass. I think I have 1 or 2 stainless pieces in the whole thing, but basically brass and copper. And this will bolt in here, he said, with his fingers crossed. Okay, I'm not even going to make that super tight. Brass has the characteristic of not backing off anyway. It's one of the better functions of using brass nuts and bolts. We used to use them on headers on race cars because you didn't need any lock washers. It would just stay put. It has nothing to do with anything. I don't know why I thought of that. Okay, so now we're fairly secure here. I'm not going to tighten anything up until I'm confident that everything is going together correctly. Now I want my my bowl holder gizmo, and it comes on, slides down, and for the moment I'm going to tell you where I want it. I want it about 1/16 of an inch of exposure of the top of the tube. I need 3 hands here. And that's just a reference point. That could change, and that's why it's all adjustable. So here we go. All right, that's tight. That's tight, and that'll now support the bowl. That load goes through this pipe, solid all the way down into the cauldron. So that'll be rock solid. Now, damn, I wish I had. Let's see. Here's a change out in our studio setup here at the Copper Gardens filming studio. So we have pretty much the piece all together. Let's set on the top upside down bowl. We went round and round on this, and my client, brilliant designer that he is, did not like the upside down bowl, and we fought and kicked and screamed. No, we didn't. We just agreed that this was going to work. And the other side, which is, by the way, why I want this upside down piece. It's 2 reasons. I want to cover up that ugly piece protruding up through. Let me show you that right now. This is coming up through for the purpose of blocking water to flow back down. But I don't want to see that. This other little gizmo piece here is going to sit in there to help block off some of the hole. And then on top of that, or in and around and beside that, we're going to have some furnace insulation, non-flammable goo that is going to soak up a ton of water and keep gas from flowing up through here. We had it flowing up through here and flames kind of leaking out around here. It wasn't terrible, but it took so much of the gas up through here that we lost the flame coming out around the edges. And that I didn't like. So once we got the flame back to coming out around the edges along with the widely separated pilots, I think we had a pretty decent look. Let me show you what this final thing looks like. And I chose another one of my free cast copper pieces, which has no particular fit, by the way. You can kind of place it where you want to. And I wanted this because it had that same kind of a rough texture that I could have put a smooth bowl in there. We tried it, and it looked okay, but it didn't quite look as nice as this piece does. So, the only other thing which I won't bother to show you on the video is simply putting the gas lines in. The reason it's not critical now is that in the final situation, there'll be a different setup altogether. In fact, the gas that was planned originally will through the cauldron will come up through the center, support this post, but then we have the auxiliary line, as we agreed some time ago in the midst of all of those pieces I showed you in the earlier video, that it was not going to work with a single gas supply. It just wasn't going to work or be controllable enough for you to walk away and let the thing flame all night or as long as you cared to. It was just going to keep, there was too much variation. By the way, let me walk in here quickly. You'll see it again later. I converted, here's our test, here's our cauldron for test purposes, farmer's feed barrel. But I converted 2 of my acetylene controllers to adapt to the inlets here, which will go with the piece, go off to the South Pacific Island where it will rest happily ever after, we hope. So I have 2 gas tanks that I'll be supplying it with here. One of the options that I want you to tell me about, Mr. Owner, is if you'd like me to supply you with a thing. I have 2 of these. I have this one and one other. Here's one that actually has a tank. Excuse the running around here. I could do a Y fitting for you of some sort, so you could bring your gas line in and then split off and go to the 2 1/4-inch lines somewhere out of sight. So tell me if you want me to do something like that to make your actual setup a little easier. Okay, Again, it's time for me to be quiet for a bit, and we'll come back, and it's now, what, sometime in the morning. We'll come back this evening and set up and show you this thing running. You'll see it in a few seconds after I shut up here. So thanks for viewing again. Oh my God, I'm talking way too long for my normal. This is what it takes, though. I've been on this thing for not steadily for months, but off and on for months and months and months. It would be very difficult to describe to anybody what it has taken to get to this crazy mess. It looks, I mean, it's almost an embarrassment to show you this, except that it works. And that was the point. Okay, the one other thing I thought I would show you really quickly is this little gizmo, the Seaview Cable Gland. What a weird name, I don't get it. But this will allow me to run our wires for lighting and our other secondary gas supply out through the cauldron down to below, and put a supply line in there. And again, if that needs to change, Mr. Owner, your wish is my command. This will work, and I think we only had the one supply in mind. Yeah, I don't, with the two pressure regulators outside of the cauldron, we can't take another line off of here or it defeats the whole purpose. So we need to have those out of sight, below, or in a, that's up to you. This is your choice, not mine. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll be back in a few seconds.